If you've ever felt her pull away without a single honest word, if you've replayed conversations at night wondering when you stopped being enough, stay with me. What I'm about to say will hurt, but it will also free you, because no one ever told you the truth about what it really means when she doesn't love you anymore. Here's the part men are never warned about. Love rarely ends with a dramatic breakup. It fades quietly. It leaves clues long before it leaves the relationship. And most men are trained to ignore those clues, explain them away, or blame themselves for things that were never in their control. When a woman doesn't love you, she doesn't usually become cruel. She becomes polite, calm, reasonable, and that's what makes it so dangerous, because you mistake peace for loyalty. You mistake silence for stability. But emotional distance is not peace, it's absence. She stops fighting with you not because things are better, but because she's already stopped investing. Arguments require hope. Complaints require belief that you can still change. When that disappears, so does the noise. What replaces it is emotional checkout. You'll notice it first in the smallest places. She listens, but she doesn't lean in. She answers, but she doesn't ask. She laughs, but it never reaches her eyes. And you tell yourself you're imagining things. You tell yourself all relationships slow down. You tell yourself to be patient. But here's the truth men are never supposed to know. When a woman loves you, she is emotionally loud. When she doesn't, she becomes emotionally efficient. She gives you just enough to keep the structure standing, but not enough to feel alive inside it. She stops sharing her inner world, not because she has nothing to say, but because she no longer feels the need to let you see it. Her dreams, her fears, her excitement about the future, those conversations quietly disappear. And instead of saying, I don't love you, she says things like, I'm just tired, or I don't know what I want right now. And here's where most men lose themselves. You try harder, you become nicer, you become more available, you over-explain, you overgive. You think love is something you can earn back if you just perform better. But attraction does not respond to pressure. Desire does not grow from sacrifice alone, and love cannot be negotiated. When she doesn't love you, your presence stops changing her emotional state. Your touch doesn't ground her, your absence doesn't bother her the way it used to, and that is not because you failed as a man, it's because her emotional bond has already shifted. The hardest truth is this: she often knows she doesn't love you long before you do. She grieves the relationship while she's still in it. By the time you feel panic, she's already felt relief. And no one teaches men how to read this moment. No one tells you that staying longer won't make her remember, that proving your loyalty won't reignite desire, that love doesn't come back because you suffer quietly. This is the moment where most men either wake up or disappear inside themselves. So here's the question I want you to sit with before we go further. Have you been trying to save something that already let go of you? Tell me in the comments what line hit you the hardest. If this spoke a truth you were never supposed to hear, like the video, subscribe, and share it with a friend who needs to hear this before it's too late. When she doesn't love you, she doesn't leave all at once. She rearranges the relationship so it works for her, not for both of you. And if you don't understand this, you'll stay trapped in confusion for months, sometimes years. Here's what no one explains clearly. Women don't detach logically first. They detach emotionally. And once that emotional cord is cut, behavior changes in ways that feel subtle but are brutally consistent. She becomes selective with her energy. She still shows up, but only when it costs her nothing. She still texts, but without warmth. She still spends time with you, but it feels scheduled, not chosen. You're no longer a priority. You're a habit. You start noticing that intimacy feels different. Not just physical intimacy, but emotional closeness. The moments that used to feel spontaneous now feel transactional. Affection appears when it's expected, not when it's felt. And deep down, your body senses the truth before your mind accepts it. This is where men make the most painful mistake. You assume love works like logic. You think consistency equals commitment. You think staying equals caring. But emotional connection doesn't follow rules. It follows desire. And desire cannot be forced into existence. When she doesn't love you, she stops being curious about you. She doesn't wonder how you feel when you're quiet. She doesn't notice the shift in your energy. Your inner world becomes background noise. You're present, but unseen. And here's the part that cuts deepest. She may still depend on you for comfort, for stability, for validation, for routine. But dependence is not devotion. Someone can rely on you while no longer choosing you emotionally. You might hear phrases like, "You're such a good man," or "I don't deserve you," or "I care about you so much." These sound kind, but they are emotional exit signs. They're said to ease guilt, not to rebuild connection. Because when a woman loves you, she doesn't reassure you of your value. She shows it through effort, desire, and emotional presence. When love is gone, words replace action. Another truth men are never taught. Women often pull away internally before they pull away externally. She starts imagining a life where you're not central. She visualizes freedom before she asks for it. By the time she talks about space, she's already been living without you emotionally. And if you try to confront this directly, you're met with confusion. She says she doesn't know what she feels. She says she's overwhelmed. She says she needs time. But what she really means is she doesn't feel what she used to. And she's afraid to say it out loud, not because she wants to hurt you, but because ending something feels scarier than slowly letting it fade. This is where many men lose their self-respect without realizing it. You start shrinking yourself. You stop expressing needs. You walk on emotional eggshells. You hope that being low maintenance will make you lovable again. But attraction does not reward self-erasure. Love does not return because you disappear inside the relationship. The quiet tragedy is this. While you're trying to hold things together, she's learning how to live without leaning on you emotionally. And once that independence is complete, the bond rarely survives. This isn't about blaming her. It's about seeing reality clearly, because clarity is power, and confusion keeps you stuck. So before we go any further, ask yourself this honestly. Are you fighting for love or fighting against the truth? When she doesn't love you, the most painful part isn't what she does, it's what she stops doing without announcing it. And if you don't understand this phase, you'll misread the situation completely. She stops repairing things. When love is alive, a woman tries to fix emotional cracks. She explains herself. She circles back after tension. She wants to be understood, and she wants to understand you. When love is gone, repair feels pointless. So she lets misunderstandings sit. She lets distance grow. She lets moments pass that once would have mattered. You'll notice she no longer corrects you when you're wrong about her. She doesn't say, "That's not what I meant." She doesn't clarify her feelings. That's not peace. That's resignation. She's no longer invested in being truly known by you. And here's the truth that breaks most men. Emotional withdrawal feels passive, but it's a decision, not a sudden one, but a repeated internal choice to stop leaning toward you. This is why her behavior feels inconsistent. Some days she's warm, some days she's distant. That inconsistency keeps you hooked. You cling to the good moments as proof that love still exists. But inconsistency is not hope, it's transition. Another hard truth men aren't taught. When a woman doesn't love you, she begins protecting her emotional autonomy. She becomes more private, more guarded. Not because she's hiding something specific, but because she no longer wants emotional entanglement. You feel it when she no longer opens up the same way, when she handles stress alone instead of turning to you, when she shares news after the fact instead of in the moment. She's already practicing a life where you're optional. This is also when comparison quietly enters the picture, not always to another man, but to another state of being. She compares how she feels with you versus how she feels when she's alone. And if alone feels lighter, calmer, freer, that comparison is devastating. You may sense that she's happier away from you than with you. That realization hits men hard because it triggers shame. You start thinking, if I were better, she'd feel different. But love isn't a reward system. It's not granted for effort. It's sustained by emotional alignment. And here's the part that's rarely said out loud. The more you try to pull her back emotionally, the more she feels the weight of expectation. And expectation kills what little desire might remain. So you start bargaining internally. You tell yourself to wait, to give it time, to not make waves, to not push her away. But silence doesn't preserve love. It only delays the inevitable while draining your self-worth. This phase is dangerous because it teaches men to abandon themselves. You stop asking for closeness. You stop expressing hurt. You stop being fully honest because you're afraid honesty will end things. But love that requires you to stay quiet is already gone. The truth is, when she doesn't love you, she's not confused, she's conflicted. Conflicted between comfort and truth, between familiarity and honesty. And the longer this goes on, the more the relationship becomes an emotional waiting room. And waiting rooms are where time passes, but nothing heals. So here's the question you need to face right now, without excuses. Have you been silencing your own needs just to keep her comfortable? Sit with that, because the answer changes everything. When she doesn't love you, the final shift isn't dramatic. It's quiet acceptance. And this is the stage most men don't recognize until it's already cost them their confidence, their peace, and their sense of self. She stops reacting, not just to arguments, but to you. Your moods don't move her anymore. Your frustration doesn't create urgency. Your sadness doesn't pull her closer. Emotional neutrality replaces emotional engagement, and that neutrality is the clearest sign that love has already left the room. At this point, she's no longer deciding whether to stay. She's deciding how to leave without chaos. She's organizing the emotional exit while keeping the external structure intact. And that's why everything feels strangely calm right before it ends. This is where men misinterpret silence as stability. You think, at least we're not fighting. But what you're actually experiencing is emotional detachment. Conflict requires caring. Distance requires none. Another truth men are rarely told. When a woman doesn't love you, she may start treating you better in small ways. Kinder, politer, more considerate. Not out of love, but out of guilt. She wants to leave without being the villain in her own story. So she softens her tone. She avoids confrontation. She reassures you just enough to prevent collapse. And you mistake kindness for commitment. But watch closely. Her future language disappears. She stops saying we when talking about plans. She avoids long-term conversations. She deflects questions about where things are going, not because she hasn't thought about it, but because she already has. You'll also notice that your presence becomes negotiable. She's okay with less time together. She doesn't mind if plans change. She adapts quickly to your absence. That adaptability feels small, but it's everything. Because when someone loves you, your absence is felt. When they don't, it's easily absorbed. This is the stage where men break themselves trying to revive something that no longer exists. You revisit old memories. You remind her of what you shared. You become nostalgic, hoping emotion will spark emotion. But memory does not create desire. History does not equal connection. And love does not return because you remember it harder. The most painful realization is this. Staying in this phase teaches her that you'll accept emotional scraps. And once that dynamic forms, respect erodes silently. Not because you're weak, but because you're ignoring your own boundaries. Self-respect isn't about walking away in anger. It's about recognizing when staying requires you to betray yourself. And here's the part that most men need to hear clearly. Her lack of love is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of emotional mismatch, timing, growth, and change. You can be valuable and still not be chosen. But the longer you stay where you're not chosen, the more you teach yourself that being unwanted is normal. This is where the story changes, if you let it. Because the moment you stop chasing clarity from someone who has already decided, you reclaim your power. So ask yourself this, honestly and without fear. Are you staying because there's love, or because you're afraid of what happens when you leave? When you finally accept that she doesn't love you, something strange happens. The pain doesn't disappear, but it becomes clean. It stops poisoning your thoughts every hour, and for the first time in a long while, you start to hear your own voice again. Here's the truth that sets men free. Closure does not come from her. It never has. Closure comes the moment you stop asking someone who has emotionally left to explain why they left. You don't need one more conversation. You don't need one more explanation. You don't need to understand every detail of her inner world. What you need is self-alignment. the decision to stop negotiating with reality. Because when a woman doesn't love you, the most powerful thing you can do is stop trying to change her feelings and start honoring your own. Walking away is not weakness. It is not failure. It is not giving up. It is choosing not to abandon yourself for the sake of comfort. The men who heal fastest are not the ones who suppress emotion. They are the ones who allow the grief without turning it into self-hatred. You lost a connection, not your value. You lost a relationship, not your future. And here's something most men never hear. Being left does not mean you were lacking. It means the relationship had an expiration date you didn't see coming. Some connections are meant to wake you up, not stay forever. Once you stop chasing someone who doesn't choose you, your energy returns, your clarity sharpens, your standards rise. You stop trying to be enough for one person and start becoming grounded in who you are. This is where real confidence is rebuilt, not through validation, not through another relationship, but through self-respect. You learn to notice red flags earlier. You learn to speak your needs without fear. You learn that love without effort, curiosity, and emotional presence is not love. It's familiarity. And when you carry that awareness forward, something changes. You no longer attract people who need to be convinced. You attract people who choose you willingly. This is the quiet victory no one talks about, because the man who can walk away from emotional neglect becomes dangerous, in the best way, not bitter, not closed, but clear. Clear about what he deserves, clear about what he won't tolerate, clear about the kind of love he will no longer chase. If you're listening to this and recognizing your own story, know this: you're not behind, you're not broken, you're waking up, and waking up always hurts before it empowers. Now I want to hear from you. What was the moment you realized she didn't love you anymore? Write it in the comments. Read other men's stories. You're not alone in this. If this video gave you clarity, like it, subscribe, and share it with a friend who needs to hear this truth today.